The carriage lights are dim, the color of amber tea held up to a lamp. Rain traces soft hieroglyphs on the glass, slipping downward in unhurried lines. I lean my forehead to the cool pane, feeling the distant countryside unfold like a hush between breaths. There is a station drifting past, little more than a modest platform and a single bench. Its overhead bulb flickers, haloed by mist. No one boards, no one disembarks. The place exists only for the few seconds it glows beside us, then vanishes into the dark as if it had been imagined. The wheels hum a low lullaby, steel blessing steel. I measure the rhythm against my pulse, noticing how easily the two align. Each clack over the joints feels like a slow heartbeat for the earth itself, steady and reassuring, promising that movement can still feel like safety. Across the aisle, a young woman sleeps, head resting on a folded coat. A paperback lies open on her lap, spine bent back, its words breathing quietly in the lamplight. I wonder if she dreams herself further down the track, to a town where morning bread scents the streets and someone waits by a window. I remember another journey years ago, the summer I carried an apologetic letter all night, rehearsing how to read it aloud. Back then, I thought courage tasted like sleeplessness and recitations. When dawn finally arrived, I never delivered the letter. I watched the recipient step from the platform into a bright future I chose not to enter. Some words are better left folded, like paper cranes that never fly but still remain beautiful. Next carriage over, an elderly man polishes his glasses, even though the lenses already gleam. His hands move with patient devotion, perhaps cleaning away more than smudges, maybe erasing days that grew too clouded to recall clearly. I imagine he carries stories only he can read. Faded photographs tucked between ticket stubs, laughter pressed flat like flowers in a book. Outside, fields surrender to fog. Trees appear, then fade, like thoughts I once held tightly before they slipped into gentler silence. I trace the silhouette of a distant barn, its roof glistening with rain. It looks less like a building than a memory, the kind that arrives without invitation, then softens into a sigh. Time here feels elastic. Minutes stretch, then fold back on themselves, like the slow closing of a concertina. I notice how night travel asks nothing of me except attention to small miracles. The reflection of lightning far away, the deep blue bruise of clouds, the brief glow of a trackside signal turning green. At the end of the car, the conductor moves with quiet care, checking nothing in particular, his footsteps muffled by carpet. He tips his cap to no one in particular, perhaps to the thought of order itself. I find comfort in that small ritual, a reminder that even in drifting hours someone keeps watch. I think about promises, the ones we make under daylight confidence and the ones whispered in twilight uncertainty. Promises are bridges. Some hold, some collapse, all of them spanning the slow rivers of our days. Here on this train, I feel suspended between shores, content not to arrive, grateful simply to remain afloat on motion. The rain intensifies, each droplet a soft percussion on the roof. I close my eyes, counting them not with numbers but with sensations. Coolness, then warmth, then coolness again, as if the night itself breathes through the cracks. There is a tenderness in stormlight, a permission to be as quiet as weather. Somewhere behind me, a child murmurs in sleep, a fragment of song escaping like a shy bird. Childhood nights on trains live in my mind as lantern-lit tunnels, parents whispering above my head, and the delicious certainty that the world could move while I, small and trusting, remained safely still. I borrow that feeling now, tuck it around my shoulders like an old quilt. We pass another station, this one with a clock stopped at midnight. Perhaps the hands broke years ago, or perhaps they honor every passing crew by refusing to move, keeping secrets in perfect stillness. Either way, the platform becomes an island of paused time, and I wave to it silently. The landscape opens into grazing land, pale grasses bending beneath the rain. I picture the cows huddled under skeletal trees, breathing clouds into the drizzle. Their patience reminds me that life continues without explanation, that rest is part of living, not an interruption. I touch the window once more, feeling the vibration, slower now as if the train too grows drowsy. In this half-light I let regrets dissolve, like sugar stirred long enough that only sweetness lingers. There will be mornings for action, but tonight invites surrender. The ceiling lights dim a final shade, persuading even my thoughts to whisper. I watch my reflection blur against the black outside, face overlaid on rolling fields, a palimpsest of journey and self. The rain beads along my mirrored cheek. I almost believe the night is weeping gentle gratitude for being witnessed. A faint announcement drifts through, words indistinct, syllables soft as moth wings. No need to move yet. My destination waits beyond several more valleys of sleep, and valleys of sleep are good terrain for hope. I breathe deep, tasting the iron-tinged air, the smell of cooling brakes, the ghost of pine from distant forests. The woman across from me stirs, closes her book, and smiles half awake before drifting back to dreams. Her small gesture feels like permission to settle the weight of my eyelids, to let go of the passing lights, to accept that peace sometimes rides the rails at night wearing the scent of rain. I fold my hands, listen to the carriage exhale, and allow each mile to loosen thought from bone. The hum grows softer, wider, an ocean of sound fading toward a shore I will reach in slumber. When dawn calls, I will answer, but for now I surrender to the dark glide, grateful for every quiet mile that remains. The rain has softened to a hush, so fine it seems woven into the glass itself. I sit alone near the back of the carriage, watching pale signal lamps pass like measured heartbeats. Each glow slips across the ceiling, pauses on the worn upholstery, then fades into the aisle's dark. The rhythm is steady, unrushed, almost apologetic for breaking the silence. The window is my only companion tonight. It frames the countryside in small, patient scenes. A cluster of distant rooftops blinking under street lamps, a lone scarecrow bowing to the drizzle, rows of hedges blurred into silvery threads. I trace these images as if they were ink on fragile paper, letting them settle in the corners of my mind. A middle-aged couple 2 rows ahead lean toward each other, asleep in mirrored poses. Their heads tilt together, foreheads nearly touching, breaths sinking like joined tides. I imagine their day, perhaps a quiet wedding anniversary by the sea, returning late with pockets full of smooth shells and lingering salt on their sleeves. Their peace ripples outward, coating the whole car in gentle calm. Somewhere overhead, the ventilation hums a note low enough to feel more than hear. It reminds me of summer spent dozing under a box fan, the blades chopping hot air into cooler ribbons. Back then, nights felt impossibly long. I swore I could map every star if I stayed awake. Now the stars hide behind cloud and rain, but I still sense their patient glimmer, waiting above this rolling shelter of metal and glass. The train slows for a minor junction. We glide past an abandoned freight yard where rusted wagons stand in rows, their wheels seized by years of quiet. Grass grows tall between the rails, waving softly like someone signaling goodbye long after the train has left. I feel a tug of melancholy, not heavy but wistful, a reminder that everything waits to be reclaimed by stillness if left unattended. Time unfurls differently here. Minutes lengthen like shadows at dusk, letting thoughts breathe. I recall a letter I never sent, the envelope now tucked into a drawer with theater stubs and dried lavender. I kept meaning to find the right words, yet silence filled the spaces where sentences should have bloomed. On nights like this, I wonder if the unsent message might have eased 2 hearts, or if its emptiness became its own gentle mercy. Across from me, a teenager in a hooded coat sketches by the glow of a phone flashlight. The pencil moves quickly, sure of each line. I glimpse shapes, a curved track, rain-dotted windows, a lonely tree bending in wind. Perhaps he is drawing what lies outside, or perhaps he sketches what he hopes to see. Art can be a compass when landscapes grow uncertain. The conductor walks through with a soft bristled broom, sweeping invisible dust. His steps feel ritualistic, almost meditative. He offers a nod when our eyes meet, then drifts on, a quiet guardian of order. I marvel at small acts of care performed for strangers who will never know to say thank you. Such gestures stitch ordinary nights into something quietly holy. Outside, fields widen into marshland. Pools of water glint under sparse moonlight, reflecting patches of sky. I think of mirrors, of how they hold an image for seconds, then release it without complaint. Maybe memories function the same way, fleeting, reflective content not to be possessed forever. When I was 10, my grandfather taught me to skim stones across a pond. Aim for the stillest water, he whispered, and let your wrist stay loose. The stones danced in widening circles, then sank where frogs crooned unseen. Tonight the train feels like one of those stones, touching moments lightly before slipping into deeper night. We pass a cottage whose single upstairs light remains on. In its warm square glow, I imagine someone writing late, perhaps a poem about rain-stitched horizons, or a letter they fully intend to mail. Their solitude doesn't feel lonely from this distance. Instead, it shines like a lighthouse, guiding thoughts that wander too far from shore. The wheels sing a slower song now, a lull in their metallic chorus. I sense fatigue easing into the carriage, loosening shoulders, dimming screens. Even my heartbeat resettles, trading urgency for a languid sway. The night accepts every sigh and exhale, weaving them into its dark fabric. Another station approaches, just a modest shelter, roof bowed under dripping ivy. A single cat perches on the platform edge, tail flicking against the cold. The doors stay shut. The cat watches us leave without judgment, as if it knows all journeys are temporary intrusions on its quiet domain. I picture it returning inside, stretching beside a boiler's warmth, forgetting us the moment our lights vanish. Fog gathers thicker past the station, wrapping the train in soft white secrecy. Landscape dissolves until only the closest hedgerows remain, floating like faint pencil lines on blank paper. Inside the carriage, reflections grow stronger than the view, and I see my own eyes half-lidded, drifting somewhere between presence and dream. I think about hope, how it never announces itself loudly, choosing instead to ride hidden in ordinary wagons. The fresh notebook in a commuter's bag, the ticket clutched by someone starting over, the quiet conviction that dawn will honor its promise. Tonight hope travels under my seat, humming along with the wheels, asking for nothing but acknowledgement. Rain returns in earnest, drumming a deeper cadence. Each droplet seems to say rest now, rest now, rest. I let the mantra soak through bone. Regrets lighten, plans dissolve into mist. There will be hours for striving, but this stretch of track belongs to softness. The teenager closes his sketchbook, satisfied. The couple shifts closer, hands entwining even in sleep. The conductor's broom rests against the wall. The whole carriage exhales as one, united in gentle surrender. I tilt my head back, feeling the seat cradle me like a slow tide. Signals blur by green, then yellow, then green again, their colors fading into one long ribbon of muted light. I watch until my eyelids grow too heavy to hold open. The train continues, tireless, ferrying dreams alongside passengers, carrying them over bridges of rain toward whatever quiet dawn waits beyond the horizon. And so I let go, settling into the hum and the hush, trusting the rails to cradle every fragile thought, every quiet prayer, until sleep drifts in like fog across the fields and carries me the rest of the way. Soft rain threads across the window like faint handwriting, almost too gentle to hear. I sit in the middle of the carriage, feeling the train lean into a slow curve, metal sighing in satisfaction. Outside, moonlit pastureland glimmers through patches of mist, each blade of grass bowed as though listening to the low hum beneath our feet. A row of dim cabin lights hovers above, casting sleepy halos over unclaimed seats. They remind me of porch lamps left burning for travelers who never quite make it home by midnight. That thought settles warmly in my chest, neither sad nor joyous, just true, the way dew simply exists on morning fields. Near the door, a young man resumes reading a weather-stained postcard. He studies the smudged ink with the care of someone decoding a lost language, lips moving without sound. I imagine the message, a promise to meet when the leaves turned, or perhaps a single line, "The sea is bluer than I hoped." Whatever it says, he folds the card with reverence, returns it to his pocket, and closes his eyes as if to hold the words nearer to the heart than paper allows. The train slips past an orchard where branches hang low, silvered by rain. Each tree forms an archway to somewhere unpronounced, a place existing only at this hour, on this line, between two small stations no timetable bothers to celebrate. I realize how many secret landscapes reveal themselves only to those awake past reason. They are gifts for the sleepless, quiet glimpses of the world dreaming with its eyes half open. Wind nudges the carriage and I think of my mother's phrase, "The night taps to see if we're still listening." She would whisper it when storms shivered window panes, as though thunder carried polite curiosity rather than force. Tonight the taps are gentle, reminding, not demanding. I answer by staying awake, by noticing. Across the aisle, an elderly woman knits small circles into a length of gray yarn. Her needles click softly like distant pebbles skipping water. I picture the scarf already warming someone she loves, though the final rows remain undone, each stitch a promise to keep caring just a little longer. She pauses, closes her eyes, and lets the needles rest, trusting momentum to carry the pattern forward when she wakes. We slow for an unmanned halt, lights pooling over slick platform boards. A single vending machine flickers, its red glow pulsing on puddles. No footsteps echo here, yet I find comfort in imagined ones. A man buying hot chocolate for a child too excited to sleep, two friends laughing at their own reflections, a traveler hugging their coat tighter while waiting for the next train. The doors remain sealed. Still, I nod in greeting to the invisible souls I've conjured, grateful for their quiet company. In the reflection I catch my own faint outline, softer than I remember. Travel does that, blurs edges, smooths sharpness, makes the self a little kinder. I think of all the versions of me passing through stations I never noticed. The hurried me, the disappointed me, the hopeful me waving at dawn. Tonight they sit together in the same seat, at peace with one another under the dim lamp. The conductor walks by, his steps patient, almost unhurried. He slides a small booklet into the seat pocket and lingers for a heartbeat, ensuring it lies flat. Such tenderness in so simple an action. Proof that care, like water, finds every space, even ones too small to see. Outside, the landscape opens into rolling moor. Heather spreads like a muted quilt, rain beating on each stalk, tiny mirrored lanterns catching stray light from the carriage. I imagine the moor breathing, exhaling stories from centuries of passing feet and hooves and wheels. Somewhere among them lives a tale of two strangers who once met on a night like this, exchanging nothing but a shared sigh at the view, yet remembering that sigh forever. The pace of the wheels eases further, as though the train too is ready for bed. I match my breathing to the spacing of the joints in the track. Inhale at the gentle rise, exhale at the soft fall. Gradually my pulse learns the rhythm, then settles inside it like a bird nesting in rhythm's hollow. A sudden fragrance of brewed coffee floats down the aisle, someone lifting a travel mug to their lips, steam curling like a slow question. For a moment the carriage feels like a small kitchen at dawn, pots clinking, curtains stirring, an older cousin humming an almost forgotten lullaby. That memory isn't mine, yet it fits perfectly, the way borrowed gloves still warm cold fingers. We pass beneath an iron footbridge, graffiti visible in a strobe of light. A single word, breathe. The reminder enters me like cool air, spreading through lungs, softening shoulders I hadn't noticed were tense. Funny how strangers leave kindness in spray-painted syllables, trustful that someone riding in the quiet hours will receive it. Another field, this one hosting half-seen horses huddled under oak silhouettes. Their stillness feels deliberate, almost ceremonial, as if night grants them audience with the sky. I bow my head instinctively, honoring whatever vow the horses keep. Thought drifts toward an unfinished letter tucked in my bag. I meant to explain so much. Apologies, confessions, and offering of future plans. Yet here, lulled by rain and rolling steel, I recognize that some feelings communicate themselves simply by enduring. Maybe the letter can stay unfinished and still be understood. Maybe presence, even from afar, fills the spaces words cannot reach. The elderly woman rouses, winds a final loop of yarn, tucks needles away, and smiles at no one in particular. The young man touches the postcard once more, reassured by its silent pulse. The conductor adjusts his cap, satisfied. All small closures before the deeper closing of night. The lights dim another shade, settling into a muted glow that invites silence. Landscape melts into pure darkness now, the window reflecting only the soft lamp above my head. I watch that single orb floating on glass and feel it drift closer, like a planet calling me under its gentle orbit. I close my eyes, and the train continues to murmur its lullaby, every rail joint a dropped pebble in a vast, still pond. Soon I will lose count of the ripples, soon they will merge into sleep's wide water. For now, I savor the final awareness of motion, the certainty that somewhere beyond the dark fields, dawn is already loosening its first pale threads, ready to stitch new light across the sky. I let the thought fade. I let myself drift. The train carries on, unhurried, faithful, drawing me softly toward the quiet between stations where dreams choose their paths and night, at last, does what night was always meant to do, keep us safe while we rest. The train drifts through a shy drizzle, and every droplet that strikes the glass feels like a syllable of a language meant only for night travelers. I lift a finger and trace one line of moisture downward, watching it weave around older paths, folding into the chorus already sliding toward the frame. Outside, a row of poplar trees blurs to charcoal sketches, their shapes tilting in agreement with our motion. The carriage lights taper to a low honeyed glow. Seats sit mostly vacant, strewn with coats and scarves that look as if their owners have briefly stepped into dreams and left their garments to mind the journey. Overhead luggage racks hold sleeping bags, guitar cases, bouquets of crinkled brown paper. Quiet promises to destinations we'll never see. A man 2 rows ahead wears headphones, head bobbing in slow circles. His hand conducts an invisible orchestra, but the movement is tender, as if he wouldn't wish to disturb the hush folding itself over the aisle. I imagine the song he hears, perhaps a lone piano tracing hushes between notes, or a recording of ocean waves that remind him of childhood summers when dusk tasted of salt and ice cream. We cross a modest viaduct. Beneath, the river shines like a black ribbon snipped in places by raindrop rings. Its surface honors every light that leans out from the windows, making a constellation of our passing, momentary but sincere. I once wrote letters to myself on nights like this, sealing them without stamps, slipping them into the back cover of whichever book I was reading. When I found them years later, the questions inside had already been answered by living, or else had grown gentle enough not to need answering. Memory, I've learned, is patient. It waits at empty stations with a thermos of tea until we return to claim it. Ahead, the conductor lowers himself into a corner seat to rest. His cap sits slightly askew, revealing silver hair pressed by time and routine. He rubs the bridge of his nose, then gazes toward the rain as though counting the droplets to be certain none are lost. There's a kindness in that gaze, an unspoken vow that every mile will be shepherded safely to the next. The train hushes to a crawl near a service siding, where stacked timber glistens under floodlights. Steam lifts from the rails, curling upward like slow incense. I breathe in imaginary cedar, feel it settle behind my eyes, a forest distilled to a single calming breath. Across from me, a girl of perhaps 12 cradles a plush fox, its russet coat rubbed thin. Her guardian sleeps beside her, chin tucked into a padded jacket. She whispers something into the toy's stitched ear, a secret small enough for button eyes to guard. I recall whispering to the dark myself at that age, believing night carried messages quicker than any post. A farmhouse materializes, windows aglow, then slides away behind hedgerows. Inside, I picture kettle steam, a sprawled cat, a table half cleared of supper. The occupants likely never think of the train that hums across their periphery, yet their lamp becomes a lighthouse to wandering thinkers like me. I let my shoulders sink against the cushions and match my breath to the sway. Each joint in the track offers a soft percussion, talam, talam, inviting lungs to echo its pace. Gradually thoughts anat, drifting into the liminal space where reflection becomes almost tactile, something you could hold between palms yet choose not to for fear of crushing its lightness. We pass a freight yard abandoned for the night, carriages stenciled with dates and codes, paint flaking like old snow. A solitary sodium lamp arches over rusted couplings, revealing weeds that have claimed sleepers as their own. I think of conversations left unfinished, how they too grow silent vines around words we never said, until language itself softens and surrenders to quiet. The rain deepens, a steady percussion on the roof. It reminds me of a lullaby my grandmother hummed while folding laundry. No lyrics, just the rise and fall of breath through half-remembered melody. I hum a fragment now, under my breath, and find the tune still knows its way along my vocal cords, even after years of neglect. Another minor station slides into view. Stone shelter, corrugated roof, a single poster advertising a harvest fair long past. The clock above the platform reads 1:43, though we left that minute behind some miles ago. Time here is shy, reluctant to leap. The train obeys its lingering, then eases onward, letting the platform fade like an afterthought. I glance at my reflection, softened by droplets outside and dimness within. Eyes half-lidded, hair a shadow, mouth curved in an almost smile I didn't know I was wearing. Travel reveals versions of ourselves we seldom meet at home. Perhaps tomorrow, when mirrors grow bright again, I'll remember tonight's quietly content stranger and greet them kindly. The man with headphones removes one earpiece, the ghost of music audible in a faint cymbal shimmer. He catches my eye, nods once in shared acknowledgement of this peaceful conspiracy, being awake while the world sleeps, guardians of hush. We pass beneath an overpass. Graffiti scallops along the concrete, a wide blue wave carrying the word softly. The message slips by, but the instruction lingers. I breathe more softly, think more softly, let the edges of every memory feather outward. Rain lightens, exchanging percussion for mere static. I imagine clouds outrunning us toward the coast, showering salt marsh and dune grass, leaving the trackside world rinsed and new smelling. Tomorrow's dawn will sparkle on these wet rails, but for now they belong to night alone. The girl with the plush fox surrenders to sleep, her cheek pressed against damp fur. The conductor, too, settles deeper into his seat, cap shading closed eyes. One by one, the carriage lights dim another notch until they glow like distant campfires. My own lids grow heavy. Thoughts float down like feathers, landing on still water. There's nothing left to hold aloft, nothing urgent waiting. Only the promise of rails, the hush of wheels, the unbroken conversation between rain and glass. I allow my sight to blur, listening to silence shape itself around the faint engine hum. Somewhere ahead, a tunnel of rest opens, and the train guides us gently toward it, an unseen hand on the shoulder saying, "Here, this way, close your eyes." I oblige, and the world folds in, tender and dark, carrying me deeper into the soft geography between waking and dreaming, where night writes its quiet stories on the moving page of a window, and I finally surrender my pen. The train settles into a deeper murmur, like a river deciding it has talked enough for one night. Rain loosens to a faint hiss, beads chasing each other down the window until they vanish at the sill. I sit 3 rows from the rear door, hands wrapped around a lukewarm tea that has lost its steam but not its comfort. Outside, the countryside stretches dusky and wide, fields stitched with stone walls that appear, dissolve, reappear. Every few seconds a fence post flickers under the carriage light, then slips backward into black, a soft metronome for wandering thoughts. A young mother and her baby occupy the seat across the aisle. The child sleeps in a sling, cheek pressed to her collarbone, breathing so softly it seems the night itself inhales and exhales through him. She gently rocks with the sway, eyes half closed, lips moving in silent counting, perhaps marking miles, perhaps prayers. We pass a hill crowned with a lonely windmill, its white arms frozen. For a moment, I imagine the blades turning slowly just to wave at us, reluctant to wake the village below. Some scenes feel invented even as they pass before our eyes. The boundary between real and imagined thins in moon-washed rain. My reflection hovers on the glass, face framed by darkness, watchful, almost expectant. I recall another journey years ago, one where I carried a bouquet of garden daisies wrapped in newspaper, rehearsing apologies I never used. By the time I arrived, the daisies had wilted into small bows. Words followed them into silence. Regret pulses softly, yet tonight it hurts less, softened by the rhythmic hush of wheels. The carriage lights dim another notch. Shadows pool in the luggage racks, and I feel the whole train lean into stillness, as though preparing a cradle for everyone aboard. A student one seat ahead sketches under the glow of a phone screen. Pencil scratches faintly, tracing an outline of our compartment. The overhead lights, the mother with her child, even my silhouette looking on. It strikes me how art gathers ordinary moments before they slip away, like cupping rain in your hands. We cross a level crossing. Red lights flash over wet asphalt, illuminating abandoned ticket stubs along the tracks. The horn sounds, but gently, not to alarm, more to announce. We are here, passing through, bear witness if you wish. I sip the last of the tea. Its sweetness lingers on the back of my tongue, echoing childhood evenings when my father poured lukewarm cocoa into enamel mugs and told stories about distant coasts. He believed trains were horizontal elevators to other versions of ourselves, each stop a new floor where possibility waited. I wonder which floor I'm traveling toward now, which version of me will step into dawn. The baby stirs, offers a sleepy sigh, returns to dreaming. The mother smiles down, tracing circles on the sling's fabric. For a heartbeat, the whole carriage feels wrapped in that gesture. Tiny spirals of reassurance floating through the air like dust motes in lamplight. Outside, a broad marsh unfolds, water catching the faintest sky glow, turning every puddle into a mirror. I picture herons standing knee-deep, unmoved by our passing, guardians of patient waters. Their stillness teaches me something I keep forgetting. Movement is optional, watchfulness can be enough. The conductor arrives not to check tickets, but simply to straighten a curtain that has slipped from its hook. He presses the fabric back, smooths a fold, nods to the mother, and moves on. That small correction feels like a promise that someone cares for details even at this late hour. Past a bend, a deserted platform appears, lit by 2 yellow bulbs. We do not stop, yet I glimpse a wooden bench, rain pooling on its slats, and a timetable flapping in wind. Even unattended places keep their posture, ready to greet whoever might arrive. I hold an unspoken gratitude for the unseen caretaker who will visit come morning, mop the puddles, polish the sign. Fatigue settles over my shoulders, but it is a gentle weight, like a shawl crocheted from quiet minutes. Breath by breath, I feel thoughts slowing, sentences unraveling into wordless hum. The student closes their sketch pad, flips it shut with a soft thud that sounds like final punctuation. They lean back, eyes closed, perhaps replaying the scene inside their mind to set the graphite lines. Engine tone drops half a note, the kind of change you feel more than hear. It cues my pulse to soften, invites eyelids to drift lower. Outside, hedgerows dissolve entirely. There is only rolling dark, and within it, the suggestion of distant hills. My phone buzzes once. An old notification resurfacing, out of sequence like a postcard sent from the past. I choose not to read it. I am content to let time here remain unmeasured, unscored. A smell of rain damp wool rises from my coat, mingling with faint coffee somewhere forward in the car. These scents weave a familiar lullaby, earth, warmth, quiet companionship. I let them settle in my lungs, each breath slower than the last. The baby sighs again, longer this time, as if releasing the sigh for all of us who forget how. Lights outside thin to only occasional markers, green, amber, then none at all. The physical world yields to sound and motion, and even those begin to blur. I press my palm to the window, cool glass answers. Distance and glass separate me from the wet night, but in this touch I feel included, part of the wide breathing landscape. Rain fades to drizzle, drizzle to memory. Wheels keep speaking, but their syllables stretch farther apart, like a lullaby trailing into sleep's horizon. Thought slows to images, the windmill waving, herons in mirror marsh, a bench awaiting morning. I lower my head, close my eyes. Carriage sway cradles bone, conductor dusts hush over aisle, mother hums a near silent tune. We enter a tunnel, darkness thickens, absolute yet tender, a velvet pocket around the train. In that pocket, I surrender remaining wakefulness, trusting tracks to guard fragile dreams, trusting night to carry us to first light. And somewhere beyond this tunnel, dawn begins warming its palette, ready to paint the next fields we will cross in sleep. The rain has thinned to a velvet mist that clings to the glass, almost unwilling to let go. I sit near the junction between carriages, where the soft accordion fold breathes with every sway, exhaling a faint rubber scent that reminds me of school raincoats lined on hallway hooks. The window beside me is a muted canvas, blurred shorelines, scattered farmsteads, occasional lanterns burning like low embers in a deep hearth. Each light reflects twice, once on the river we're paralleling, once on the pane itself. So the countryside seems to carry twin constellations, one in water, one in glass. A solitary passenger in the facing seat rests his chin on interlaced fingers, watching the same reflections. His coat is neatly buttoned, though the collar is frayed, a detail that suggests years of journeys, each mile wearing the fabric thinner but never convincing him to replace it. I find comfort in that devotion to the familiar. We slow as tracks curve toward a bridge. Steel girders emerge from fog, great ribs rising out of blankness, then fading again as though the bridge is materializing just for us, plank by plank, span by span. I feel the tremor through the floorboards, a deeper resonance than ordinary track hum, an underwater chord struck on unseen piano wires. The conductor appears, lantern in hand, not to check tickets, but to glance at a small gauge fixed above the door. Numbers glow green. He nods, satisfied, and retreats, letting the lantern's circle shrink along the aisle until darkness claims it. Some gestures need no audience, yet they reassure every watcher, declared or hidden. Outside, the river widens, charcoal and silver swirling together in slow spirals. I imagine night fishermen anchored near reeds, lines cast into unseen current, content with the quiet company of water. Their silhouettes would be barely more than suggestions, much like my own reflection in this dim window. A memory arrives unannounced. My first trip alone years back, gripping a paper ticket so tightly it creased like origami. I had watched the countryside stream by, convinced adventure would greet me at the very next station. Adventure did come, softly and shyly, dressed as an elderly woman who asked me to read aloud the town names because her glasses had fogged. We shared the distance and gentle syllables. Tonight, the same anticipation rests beside me, calmer now, seasoned. Further down the carriage, a pair of friends whisper under a shared blanket, their laughter no louder than turning pages. They pass a thermos back and forth, steam curling in ghostly ribbons. The scent drifts my way, something herbal, maybe chamomile with a twist of citrus. It folds into the rain scent like parchment sealing wax, a fragile bond. We roll onto the bridge. Iron plates sing beneath the wheels, each note ringing longer than the last. The carriage seems to float, suspended between banks, suspended between wakefulness and dream. I recall my grandmother telling me rivers remember every footstep on their banks. Even the quiet ones, she said, even yours? I watch the water slip beneath us, wonder if it remembers this train, our combined hush, our collective secrets carried across its back. Halfway across, the driver taps the horn, a single low tone, reverent, like a bow offered to unseen spirits of the crossing. The sound stretches over the river, settles among the trees, and dissolves. Inside, small conversations fade. Blankets shift. A phone screen dims. The hush grows intentional, a choice shared by all aboard to honor whatever lives in mist and moving water. Near my feet, someone's forgotten newspaper rustles as the carriage tilts gently. Headlines blur. Dates, names, world matters rendered abstract under the drowse of rails. Here, newsprint returns to Merewood pulp, its urgency disarmed by night. We reach the far bank. A cluster of cottages emerges, windows bright with late rituals, kettles poured, socks mended, dogs settled by firesides. One window is open just a crack. A curtain flutters as we pass, and I fancy I hear a faint chord of piano, perhaps practice halted mid-phrase. Trees close in again, arching over the track like cathedral ribs. Leaves, wet and weighty, bow toward our roof, tapping lightly in gratitude for borrowed motion. I picture morning birds shaking those branches dry, droplets scattering like applause for dawn. The passenger across from me adjusts his seat, sighs contentedly, and finally drifts off, his frayed collar settling against the cushion. Sleep rolls over him the way fog rolls over the river, slow, sure, all enfolding. I turn to my journal, open to a blank page edged with old coffee stains. The pen hovers, but instead of words I find drawings emerging, loose lines tracing arches of bridges, ripples of water, circles of lantern light. I realize some nights prefer sketches to sentences, pictures to promises. The friends under their blanket finish the thermos, tuck it away, and rest their heads together. Their breathing aligns with the wheel rhythm. 4 counts in, 4 counts out, an unspoken duet. We approach a minor halt known mostly to freight crews. No platform lamps burn, just a signal glowing red, then lazily blinking over to green as if waking from a nap. Grass grows tall between sleepers, rain beads along each blade, tiny chandeliers. The conductor appears once more, this time placing a folded leaflet in the unattended seat across from me. I glimpse the title, Local Walks Along the Old Canal. An offering to chance, perhaps. I decide I'll keep it. Guidance chosen for me by a stranger at 2 a.m. feels like a gentle kind of luck. As we leave the siding, drizzle reignites, tracing fresh runes on the window. I lean closer, forehead brushing cool glass, letting the vibration travel straight into bone. Heartbeats slow to match axles rolling. Breath unspools. Images blur further. River, cottages, friends, conductor, all dissolving into one soft panorama. The bridge we crossed feels distant, already steeped in the realm of memory, as though I dreamed it minutes after living it. I close my journal, stash the leaflet inside, and pull my coat tighter. The world outside fades to charcoal smudge. Only interior lights remain, dim as bedside lamps. A final thought surfaces. Journeys like this are lullabies we step inside, each mile a note that hushes the ones before. I let that thought rest, eyelids lowering of their own accord, the last of wakefulness ebbing like tide under fog. Somewhere ahead a new river waits, another bridge, another hush. For now, I drift on the quiet current of steel, trusting the rails to remember the way, trusting night to hold my dreams as carefully as mist holds rain. A mild drizzle frets against the carriage roof, then forgets its urgency and settles into a hush. I have moved to the final compartment, where the seats form a small alcove of burgundy cloth, smelling faintly of cedar cleaner and old novels. The corridor light above me flickers once, then evens out as though remembering its role as night's quiet sentinel. Through the wide window, the landscape rolls by in layered shades of graphite. Low hills drift across the horizon like resting whales, their humps softened by mist. Now and then a farmhouse lamp dots the darkness. A decimal point in an equation I can almost read but never quite solve. Across the aisle, a man in a charcoal suit loosens his tie and begins tallying figures on a notepad. The numbers look like constellations strung together by faint pencil lines. He pauses, rubs the page gently with a thumb, and sighs, a breath that sounds less like defeat than surrender to lateness. I imagine the spreadsheet living behind those drawings. Profits, maybe, or the slow arithmetic of debts closing in. Yet here, the math feels kinder, rounded by the rhythm of rain and steel. Perhaps distance converts hard columns into softer sums, turning the ledger into a lullaby. The train slows, preparing to meet a passing freight. We glide onto a siding flanked by tall grasses, and for a moment the scene freezes. In this pause, the overhead lines sizzle quietly, their current pulsing like distant songbirds at dawn. Another locomotive approaches, its headlamps two pale moons sliding toward us. When it passes, the freight wagons emit a measured whoosh, as if exhaling months of cargo-borne secrets. Our windows rattle softly. The glass vibrates against my temple with a heartbeat not quite my own. Once the last wagon slips into darkness, we rejoin the main line. Acceleration comes gently, a promise rather than a shove. Wheels find their former tempo, and I feel the carriage breathe easier, like a swimmer pushing off from the pool wall. My gaze drifts to the reflection of the tie-loosening man. He has shut his notebook, folded it into a neat rectangle, and now gazes outward, lips silently forming the names of streaking villages. I wonder if he too lets the passing lights add their own figures. Griefs divided, hopes carried, worries subtracted mile by mile. At the end of the car, a teenager stretches long legs across two seats, earbuds glowing faint blue. A soft drum rhythm leaks through, barely audible over the track hum. I catch a phrase, 4 notes, repeated, and realize it fits perfectly between the rail joints. Ta-dum, 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 ta-dum. Music plus motion equals an easy sum. Years ago I counted distance by songs. 5 tracks to my cousin's farm, 7 to the coastal town, 12 all the way to university. Tonight I count by breaths instead, each inhale equal to perhaps a quarter mile, each exhale a gentle subtraction from the map. We pass under a lattice footbridge, graffiti scrawled in looping pastels. Be gentle, it says, the paint dripping like candle wax. The instruction lingers inside me longer than the structure remains in view. Be gentle with the night, with yourself, with whatever morning will ask. Ahead, a level crossing flashes amber, then ruby. A small silver car idles behind the barrier, windshield gleaming with rain-mirrored reds. Inside, a lone driver taps the steering wheel, illuminated for 2 seconds by our carriage light before we sigh past. I send them an invisible toast of camaraderie, 2 travelers halted by different rails, bound by the same drizzle. The man with the notebook stands, smooths his jacket, and wanders toward the vestibule. He hovers by the door's porthole, watching the sleepers blink by, culverts, cow pastures, an allotment plot lit by a single solar lamp. When he returns, he carries no ledger, only a look of softened mathematics in his eyes. I lean my head back, letting the seat cradle the last frets of wakefulness. The ceiling vent breathes a feather-cooled draft over my face, like a lullaby sung by air alone. From somewhere forward, a kettle whistles, then hushes, the buffet steward preparing late cocoa for the few who still stir. The scent travels down carriage in whispered ribbons, chocolate, vanilla, a pinch of cinnamon. It curls around my thoughts, easing them into spiral shapes that quickly unwind. Outside, a cluster of signal lamps repeats its silent mantra, green, 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 permission flowing into the rails beneath us. I picture each lamp as a calm instructor, chanting proceed, 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 not only to the train but to all unfinished hopes on board. A brief cut in the embankment reveals a distant reservoir, smooth as slate, storing moonlight beneath its skin. I imagine the water counting reflections the way accountants count coins. When dawn comes, the reservoir will return its borrowed light to the sky with interest. The teenager's music fades, earbuds come off, eyes flutter shut. He smiles in that unguarded way sleepers sometimes do, as though a secret punchline just arrived. I store that image, a reminder that night often resolves mysteries we forgot were puzzles. We cross another small bridge, stone arches, moss thick on the parapet. Rainwater drips through gaps, forming steady metronomes on unseen rocks below. The train hushes in respect, wheels whispering rather than clattering. All at once I notice my breathing has aligned with the track once more. Inhale, exhale, clack, clack, silence. Sentences grow longer in my head, then slower, until words separate like leaves settling on a pond. I blink, and the corridor light above dims itself to an ember. Shadows ease along the seat backs, pooling at feet, climbing with delicate patience. Midnight has found its arithmetic. Subtract brightness, add drowse, carry the hush. I close my eyes, letting the measured sway sketch invisible lullabies along my spine. In this final clarity, I think of the notebook man and his figures, the teenager and his 4-note loop, the car behind the barrier, the painted plea to be gentle. They merge into one soft theorem about distance and mercy and rain, solvable only by sleeping through it. So I yield. Equation balanced, ledger closed, melody ended. The train continues counting for me, tallying miles in the dark while I drift into the blank spaces where math relinquishes numbers and turns gently into dream. Mist presses gently against the carriage, a cool palm laid across the window. I found a quiet seat at the very front, where the curved glass lets me watch the rails appear from the dark and unfurl beneath us like silver ribbon. The engine's hum is softer here, cushioned by distance, almost like the slow turning of an enormous page. Ahead, a semaphore signal glows amber through the drizzle. It flicks green at the last moment, a small nod of trust, and we glide past without slowing. For a few heartbeats, the light reflects inside the compartment, painting the luggage racks in melancholy jade before ebbing away. Across the aisle, a woman in a rain-spattered trench coat rests a sketchbook on her knees. She isn't drawing, she just strokes the paper with the side of her thumb, as though feeling for a memory hidden beneath the grain. Her gaze drifts from page to glass and back again, undecided about which landscape she prefers, the one outside or the one imagination keeps on standby. Outside, hedgerows bow beneath the weight of rain, their leaves glittering like quiet applause. Beyond them lie fields, freshly plowed, ridges dark and velvety under cloud-muted moonlight. I picture seeds down there waiting for warmer months, patient and private, rehearsing root and stem in silence. The train slows for a minor halt called Orchard Fold, a name that sounds like a yawn mid-sentence. 2 lamps burn on the platform, their halos weak but steady. We do not stop. Instead, we coast by at walking speed, long enough for me to read the faded timetable. 4 departures a day, none at night, and to notice a brass clock stuck at 9:17. Some stations keep their own time, refusing the insistence of passing hours. They remind me that chronology can be courteous suggestion rather than strict law. The sketchbook woman raises her pencil now. She captures the clock in 3 deft lines, adds a drooping lamp, stops, smiles to herself, and closes the book as if sealing a secret she's promised not to tell. We gather speed again. Rainfall thickens to gentle percussion on the roof, rhythm steady as pulse, coaxing every loose screw and panel into a soft accompanying rattle. The harmony is complex yet utterly soothing, a chamber piece played by weather and wheels. I remember taking this line as a child, face pressed to the window until the imprint of my breath fogged the glass. My mother would point out farmhouses, telling me each belonged to storybook characters. One cottage for the baker with flour-dusted hair, another for a retired sea captain who kept a lighthouse lamp burning in his attic. Tonight I spot a distant pinprick of light and imagine it's that same captain, older still, polishing the brass lens of memory rather than any lantern. A gentle thud signals the door at the end of the car opening. The conductor appears, coat draped over one arm, cap tilted back as though surrendering to fatigue. He checks nothing, asks nothing, merely walks the aisle absorbing the hush, a caretaker of atmosphere. When he reaches my seat he offers a soft nod, and in that exchange I feel an invitation to relax a shade farther into the cushions. We enter a corridor of tall elms. Their trunks flash by like pillars in an ancient nave, branches arching overhead in brief cathedrals of rain-slicked bark. I catch myself whispering a thank you, unsure whether it's meant for the trees or the engineer who plotted the route to pass among them. Somewhere behind me, a phone vibrates once, short and apologetic, then falls silent. No one moves to answer. Messages in the daytime feel urgent. After midnight they turn into pale moths flitting at the edge of lamplight, fragile enough to ignore without guilt. The rails begin a long, slow climb. The engine lowers its voice, traction motors singing a deeper key. I sense the incline not through sight but through a slight pressure against the base of my spine, as though gravity has laid one extra blanket over the body. Halfway up the grade we pass through Bracken Tunnel. For 6 seconds the world extinguishes itself. No rain, no fields, only our own reflection riding in a darkened mirror. I see the sketchbook woman like a charcoal figure on black velvet, pencil frozen midair. I see myself too, eyes glimmering, mouth curved in an unclaimed half-smile. Then daylight of the moon returns, thin but enough, and we emerge back into drizzle with a sigh that sounds communal. A small estate appears on a hillside, windows alight, ivy glistening on stone. I picture a dog asleep beside a fire, legs twitching in dream pursuit of wood pigeons. Perhaps someone there just set a kettle to boil, unaware their kitchen lamp serves as beacon for passing contemplatives. The woman across from me slips her pencil behind one ear, unlatches her thermos, and pours a finger of tea into its cap. Steam ribbons upward before collapsing. She lifts the cup in a silent toast, to whom I cannot say, and drinks. I mirror the gesture with the last of my water, a quiet acknowledgement that companionship can exist without conversation. The climb levels, and with it something inside my chest. Thoughts that earlier darted like startled swifts now settle onto ledges of calm. I attend the rhythmic math of distance. Rail joint, sleeper, rail joint, sleeper. An equation solved by repetition until only the answer remains: rest. Another platform glides into view, gorse meadow, unlit except for one emergency lamp casting cobalt shadows. On a side wall someone has chalked a line of poetry: night keeps the diary while morning sleeps. I breathe those words in, let them annotate whatever page of memory tonight will belong to. The rain eases, transforms into mere freckles on glass. In their absence, I can hear the countryside breathing, wind brushing wheat stubble, an owl's note suspended like a lantern in distant branches. The conductor returns one last time, sliding a window shade half down to soften the lighting. The gesture feels final, as though declaring bedtime for the entire compartment. Around me, shoulders slump, eyes drift closed. Even the sketchbook rests face down, pencil tucked like bookmark. I lean back, fitting my thoughts to the natural curve of slumber. Outside, the next signal burns steady green, another courteous permission. I accept it, closing my eyes, letting the train carry both body and unfinished contemplations into that private geography where rails become rivers and time at last is content to wait. Mist lingers like a pale scarf around the train as we bend toward the coast, the faint tang of salt seeping through a cracked window seal. I have moved again, this time settling in a single seat beside the luggage bulkhead, where the hum of the traction motors feels pleasantly near, steady, unambiguous, like a heartbeat larger than mine. Rain has paused, leaving beads that cling to the glass in small constellations. Beyond them an estuary spreads wide, its mirror surface gathering moonlight and stray farm lamps into slow, rippling ribbons. Each reflection looks almost liquid, as though the night itself has melted and pooled atop the tide. A quietly dressed couple occupies the table seat across the aisle. They do not speak, instead they arrange postcards between them, sepia photographs of cliff paths, lighthouses, tidipools. One by one they tap each card as if assigning it a secret value, then slide it into a neat stack. I imagine they are designing a journey for some future spring, collecting windows through which they will someday walk. The rails rise onto a low viaduct. Wooden piles drive down into marsh reeds, and for a moment we glide over water's breath alone, nothing solid beneath but trusting timber and time. The carriage floor hums a deeper register, the long planks resonating like cello strings. I press my palm to the glass. Cold greets skin and vibration travels boneward, a gentle percussion matching my pulse in half-beats. Out on the tidal flats, wisps of fog drift like pale sleeves brushed by an unseen tide. I picture herons standing knee-deep in pooled moon, their patience older than any timetable. A cabin lamp overhead flickers. The conductor appears, smooths the light's plastic cover with 2 fingers, and the trembling stops. He gives the fixture a slow nod, a private handshake of gratitude, then moves on. His footsteps fade into the soft corridor carpet, swallowed like stones into velvet. Scent of seaweed rolls in, mingled with the faint sweetness of an orange someone peels 3 rows back. The fragrance triggers a memory, beach holidays in childhood, when my pockets filled with broken shells and my thoughts with the polite roar of surf. I recall falling asleep in a rented cottage as distant buoys chimed, each note carried through cracked windows like promises kept. A small boy toddles past, hand in his father's, pajama legs dragging just above untied sneakers. They pause at the vestibule door to watch the lights reflected in the estuary. The father crouches, points to a blinking beacon at the water's mouth. The boy gasps a single "oh," the sound feather-light, as though astonishment must stay quiet so nothing delicate breaks. We reach a signal halt named Salt Bank Curve. The timetable shows it only as a freight loop, yet lanterns glow here, amber lights arching over wet platforms painting the puddles bronze. We roll through at walking speed, and for 20 seconds I see everything as if in sepia. A maintenance hut with kettle steam coiling from its chimney, stacks of crab traps and netted towers, a hand-painted sign welcoming friends and strays. Something in me stands and waves, though I never leave my seat. Once past the halt, land opens into grazing marsh, flat, low, endless. Sheep huddle in loose knots, their wool reflecting headlamp glimmers like muted pearls. The smell of wet fleece sneaks through the cracked seal, earthy and clean, grounding as a lullaby hummed through wool. The couple with postcards pause their silent ritual. The woman selects one final card, a picture of a cliff path framed by thrift blossoms. She presses it flat between both palms, then offers it across the table. The man accepts, tucks it into a pocket nearest his heart. No words, only an understanding I can almost hear. We will keep this particular horizon. Ahead, the estuary narrows, its banks pulling close like converging book margins. We cross a swing bridge, gears grinding low and kind, each rivet in the deck thudding beneath wheels like slow beats on a marching drum heard from afar. Water passes beneath, dark and steady, carrying the lights we loan it. I recall a letter I once wrote beside this very water, ink blotting and sea damp. It said only, "I am learning to travel without arriving too soon." The letter was never sent. I tore it into 7 slips and let the tide reclaim each line. Tonight I realized that message finally found its recipient. Me here in this carriage, content to linger between stations. We slip off the bridge and into a short cutting where gorse bushes crowd the embankment, their yellow flowers shuttered tight till dawn. In the near dark I picture them glowing faintly, storing daylight like lantern fuel. Come morning they will flare gold and deliver warmth to bees that still dream inside twig hives. The boy and his father shuffle back to their seats, dreams already frosting the child's lashes. The father lifts him gently, nestles him beside the window, tucks a jacket under his cheek. Seeing them, I feel sleep begin its own gentle persuasion at the corners of my vision. One final village lights the shore, a row of fishermen's cottages, roofs hipped against wind. Strings of bulbs drape from eaves like patient comets. Their reflections shiver on water, split into wobbly Morse code. I imagine each tremor spelling out, "Safe here, safe here, safe." Inside the carriage, shades are drawn halfway. The couple rests shoulder to shoulder, postcards packed away. The oranges scent fades to memory, replaced by the neutral hush of circulated air and distant surf. I close my eyes, letting the sway Nestle thoughts into quieter patterns. The engine throttles down, the wheels adopt a slower hymn, and the estuary begins to recede behind. Yet in darkness it lingers, a flat sheet of mirrored night I can still sense, even unseen. Breath by breath, awareness loosens. Signals ahead show constant green, rails beneath promise sure return. I surrender the final inches of wakefulness, trusting tide and track to barter my small luminous dreams for the brighter coast of morning. Rain returns as the faintest hush, a silken veil sliding over the carriage roof. I have settled in a forward window seat, forehead close enough to the glass that I can feel each tremor of wheel against rail. Outside, the countryside is almost featureless now, just softly undulating dark, stitched together by hedgerows the color of ink. The clock on my phone reads 3:07 a.m., but time feels dissolved, unpinned from ordinary measure. What matters is the quiet pulse of motion, the low drone of the engine, the knowledge that somewhere ahead a pale seam of dawn lies folded against the horizon, waiting its cue. Across the aisle, an elderly man fingers a pocket watch. He flips the lid open, closes it, opens again, an unhurried tick-tock of habit rather than need. The watch chain glimmers briefly in the lamp's glow, tiny constellations caught in brass. Perhaps he times the distance between stations, or perhaps he counts heartbeats left to forgive. A few rows back, 2 university students trade murmured memories of earlier summers. One spent selling ice cream by a windy pier, the other volunteering at an orchard where bees slept in blossom cups. Their voices hover like distant surf, rhythmic, soothing, never rising above the train's own lullaby. I let their half-heard stories braid into my thoughts until they feel almost mine. We pass an unattended siding lined with tanker cars, each hull glistening under sodium lamps. Rainwater beads on the metal like tiny lenses, refracting the sparse light into shy rainbows. For a moment I imagine those tankers filled not with fuel but with the dreams people leave behind when they grow too heavy to carry. Inside, a child stirs under a puffer jacket, blinking up at his mother. She offers a fingertip to his small fist. He grips it, exhales a sigh, and slips back into sleep's warm harbor. The sight tugs at something tender, reminding me that reassurance often arrives disguised as an offered hand. The train slows to negotiate a sweeping curve beside an abandoned mill pond. Moonlight slides across the water, and reeds sway like soft brushes painting ripples into silver. I catch the spectral outline of a broken wheelhouse reflected upside down, a ghost image more vivid than the structure itself. A memory surfaces. My first notebook, pages filled with sketches of things I saw from train windows. I drew everything: signal bells, grazing cattle, even clouds whose shapes I named. I'd forgotten the notebook until now. Suddenly I wish it back, not for the pictures but for the certainty that every passing moment was worth capturing. We accelerate again. The sway grows smoother, the hum deeper, and conversation ebbs until only the occasional turn of a page or soft cough punctuates the cabin hush. Faint overhead bulbs cast their amber wash onto the aisle, pooling around shoes, softening every edge. A young woman seated diagonally forward types on a tablet, words spilling in soft blue glow. She pauses, fingers hovering, then deletes an entire paragraph with one swipe, shoulders easing as if released from a weight. I wonder what she set free: resentment, confession, vow? Night trains are good at coaxing old sentences to surface, then granting permission to let them drift away like mist. Outside, the first suggestion of dawn appears. Not color yet, but a thinning of darkness at the rim of fields. A single star hangs low, stubbornly bright, as though delaying departure for one more mile of witness. We approach Willow Halt, a station so small its nameboard leans, letters peeled but legible in flash. No one waits. Still, the platform lamp burns steady, guardianship for unseen travelers. I bow my head in silent gratitude to whoever keeps it lit, unsung curator of night. Rain lightens into mere freckles on glass. With each drop's descent, the world blurs, then clears, then blurs again, a slow blinking that urges eyes and thoughts toward closure. The elderly man snaps his pocket watch shut for the final time, folds his hands and lets them rest. A peaceful resolve settles over his features, as if he has tallied everything necessary: miles, regrets, small mercies. Seeing him, I feel an echo of that calm trickle through my own veins. I trace a fingertip along the window edge, gathering a bead of condensation. It rolls down my nail, rests in my palm like a tiny perfect lens. I bring it to my lips and feel its coolness vanish. A miniature baptism, proof that even borrowed water can offer renewal. The students behind me fall silent. One hums the closing bars of a song I almost recognize. Its melody blends with the rhythm of rails until both dissolve into pure cadence. Ahead, dawn scene brightens. A faint rose tint creeps over the eastern farmland, revealing silhouettes of windbreak trees, their branches raised like quiet choristers greeting the first measure of morning. The engine lowers power, coasting as if to honor the fragile threshold between night and day. I close my eyes briefly and see colors behind lids. Deep indigos fading into periwinkle, then soft coral. When I open them, the transformation has advanced. Sky and earth share a muted glow, as though dipped in diluted honey. The conductor makes one final walk, fingertip grazing each seat back with feathered touch, a benediction of sorts. He meets my gaze, offers a smile small but whole, then disappears into the vestibule. I listen as he radios up the line, voice low and certain, proof that even the most transient journey is shepherded by care. A sign flashes. Next stop, Morning Mere. Residents there will soon stir. Kettles clicking on, curtains parting, dogs pawing at doors still wet with rain. For now, their town sleeps under a blanket of pale gold, unaware of the quiet procession gliding toward its edge. The couple gathers their postcards, fingers interlaced over the stack, sealing their future wanderings. The tablet writer closes her device, rests forehead on folded arms. The child dreams, pocket watch man dreams, students dream. The carriage itself seems to dream, creaking softly, exhaling warmth. As the horizon glows brighter, I feel wakefulness lift like a tide departing the shore. I allow it to go without protest, knowing another tide, of daylight, of voices, of plans, will arrive soon enough. For these last shadowed miles, I choose the hush over the herald, the pause over the promise. I lean back, let eyelids fall, and trust the rails to carry me the brief remaining distance between fading night and first light, where every reflection, every whispered story, and every gently counted mile will become a quiet pearl in the pocket of dawn.